John Carson. वालेकुम सलाम आपसे मैं खुश हुई तो ये हमारा क्लास है आज के लिए हम सकाफत के बारे में बोल रहे हैं ओके अच्छा अस्सलाम वालेकुम
वालेकुम सलाम।
अच्छा दोबारा बोलें अस्सलाम वालेकुम अस्सलाम वालेकुम जब मैं अस्सलाम वालेकुम बोलता हूँ आपका जवाब ये है वालेकुम अस्सलाम ओके अस्सलाम वालेकुम
वालेकुम अस्सलाम।
तो मेरा नाम ग्रेग है और हम सकाफत के बारे में आज बोलेंगे अच्छा क्या मसला है तो मालिक कौन है सो एक दो तीन सिर्फ एक आपका मसला क्या है सिर्फ एक तीन एक ओके ओह एक दो तीन चार पाँच छः तो मालिक है जी ओके तो सकाफत तो सकाफत क्या है सकाफत पढ़ सकते हैं सकाफत जी सकाफत क्या है जी सकाफत जी क्या है कोई सवाल कोई ख्याल है आपकी राय में सकाफत क्या है समझते हैं इनके मसला क्या है सकाफत क्या है जी सकाफत है जी क्या है क्या वो हम फौजी है जी आप फौजी हैं फौजी तो फौजी लोगों के लिए सकाफत क्या अहम है या नहीं जी या नहीं क्या सकाफत अहम है जी मैं क्यों कौन ने बोले आपके बोले क्यों अहम है मैं आपके साथ बिल्कुल मुतफिक हूँ क्यों सकाफत अहम है आपकी राय क्या है बोल सकते हैं ओके कौन दीगर राय दीगर ख्याल सकाफत फौजी लोगों के लिए सकाफत ओके नहीं समझते हैं इनके मसला क्या है अंग्रेजी बोल सकते हैं ओके so I think we have a failure to communicate here Sakafat is the Urdu word for culture and we're going to talk about culture and
we failed to adapt. We failed to problem
I wasn't
solve.
impressed. You guys were repeating the words, at
we
least trying to connect. That was good. I was impressed. And you said you went on a limb. G and he. I said, gee, yeah, he dies. And the question I was asking was, is it actually important for military operations? And you said, yes, it was. So well done. But you couldn't tell me why.
So what are some of the ways that we could have attempted to communicate with this man?
English.
Huh?
Do you speak English?
Did anyone ask?
No.
Why?
Just assume that he didn't.
Why?
Ooh.
You assume that he didn't know.
Off track, sir.
Huh?
That's an important one. Assumption. I gotta write that down because I'm gonna forget the point later.
Why didn't anyone attempt to communicate?
It was intimidating, sir.
Huh?
And uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable.
It was intimidating. Oh, why?
Somehow it felt like I didn't fit in, even though
Oh, wow.
the majority was.
Wow.
It felt like I was the outsider.
And he's the only one in the room
They
that
knew what
speaks
was going
Urdu.
on. Yeah, I think the assumption is key because maybe you would assume that I'm a poor man from a backwards tribe somewhere in Pakistan or Afghanistan, and hey, I'm going to assume he doesn't speak my language, so. But you never know. You might find somebody that, hey, do you speak German? Do you speak Spanish? Oh, you speak Spanish. I speak a little Spanish. You speak a little Spanish. We can at least get somewhere close. But,
Yeah.
So, as Colonel Carson said, he didn't.
I haven't introduced you. Please introduce yourself, sir.
Yes.
And what you do and who you are. And
Yes. So
how awesome you
he
are.
demoted me. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Pipes. You said I was Lieutenant Pipes.
Yeah.
It's okay.
You guys heard that?
As long as DFAS still pays me the
I'm
right
sorry.
amount.
I'm sorry. That
I
was.
don't care.
That was. I apologize.
let me give another, an introduction, and I'll introduce myself a little more. So I didn't realize that he was an innocent man. He was walking towards me, carrying a bag. I'm in Iraq. It's height of the insurgency. I'm expecting the next IED to blow up and take me out. I looked at him, I said, "Stop!" He kept coming. He's an old man carrying a sack. What threat is he? But you know what? I just had my friend die yesterday from IED. I said, "Stop!" Held up my weapon. "Stop!" He didn't stop coming. In fact, he smiled and started coming faster. You know, I feel a genuine threat to my well-being and safety under my ROE. I had no choice. I had to take him out. So I dropped him. And I found out later.
So what just happened? What do you think? I wanna see if they can adapt quickly thinking problem solve, that's my, what just happened? Why did he, what happened?
Miscommunication.
No, ADO, you be quiet. I want progression or someone who's not been to Iraq before to communicate.
With the hand gestures, sir? Or?
Okay, tell me about it.
Well, I don't know, I'm assuming that means something positive.
Okay.
Right? Or-
Okay, anybody else?
I'm not ADO.
Huh?
I've never been to Iraq.
Okay. Go
So
ahead.
I'm pretty sure this means like hello and this means stop in
Mhm.
Iraq.
Hmm.
So maybe it was confusing to him.
Yeah. Yeah, and if I went like this, hey John, how are you? No, he's gonna feel welcome. So yeah, you're exactly right. In the Iraqi culture, that does not mean stop. And what language am I speaking? English. You know? I'm assuming that he's just gonna understand me. Why? Because I'm from the biggest, baddest army in the world, he better understand me. I got a weapon. So, another scene, and that was not me. Okay, neither of these stories are me, but this is on a positive side. There was a friend who he called him, he was able to look at this scene and see that he had military success, and that was seeing two senior generals, one a chief of his army, and the other a U.S. Army component commander in charge of 60,000, 70,000 soldiers, holding hands, walking to dinner. Two men holding hands, walking to dinner, and that was a sign of military success. And you've got to scratch your head and say, what in the world? But what happened with that particular general is later when he was under pressure to have a coup, he already had those relationships established with the United States that we were able to call directly to him and speak to him, at least help him to manage it right. So, anyhow, yeah, Lieutenant Colonel Greg Pipes, I work at U.S. Army Pacific. I'm a foreign area officer. If you guys recognize me, I've been here before. I've handed out the AUSA award for the last, I think, 2 or 3 years. I did this class for last year's seniors and spoke at a branch day a few years ago. My main connection here departed last spring, Major Dave Newhouse, if you guys remember that awesome soldier. I remember him when he was a second lieutenant, so we were in the same brigade together. But yeah, so I'm going to be talking today about cultural awareness, and that was not a prep with the Mauna Kea Observatory thing, but you can see it's everywhere, and it's so important. My thesis is this, that it's imperative for Army leaders at all levels to be culturally aware of themselves, their allies and partners, and their adversaries. Success or failure to be culturally aware can readily translate to success or failure at all levels of war and in all phases of joint operations. Big thesis, I'm sure it's longer than I should have written, but the bottom line is this is really important. And I think that over the last 15, 20 years in the United States Army, we've gotten this lesson a lot more. And the fact that I'm going to an ROTC room and there's a big thing about language learning right there. It's clear that it's trickling down. But you know what, it's one of those things that you just can't underestimate. You can't underemphasize. So cultural awareness, we've talked about it a lot, so I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think it means to be culturally aware? And we'll get to the importance of it, but what does it mean to be culturally aware? Sir?
Sir, to have some sort of understanding of other people's cultures, sir.
Okay. What else?
Just norms within the culture, sir?
Can we try to answer the question without the word culture?
Understand the background of the place that you are.
Understand the background of the place you are. You said norms, which is a great word for that. Sir?
Recognize that there are other people who are different from you.
Yeah. Yeah. The ability to step outside of yourself. I would add on that, it's a foundation for communication. If you don't have cultural understanding, you can't communicate. We're fortunately kind of in the same culture here. I'm an Army officer, you guys are Army cadets. We kind of understand similar things, so I can speak to you, and I'm pretty sure that you're understanding the words that I'm saying right now, because culturally we're pretty similar, even though I did not go to this esteemed institution. Yeah, we have to ask ourselves, why do we look at things in certain ways? Why do we act that way? How do we see the world? How do we see others around us? How do we see outsiders? It's a great quote about fish. A fish only discovers its need for water when he no longer is in it. Our own culture is like water for the fish. It sustains us. We live and breathe through it. So you don't realize what your culture is until you're out of it. And you suddenly realize, whoa, this is different. You know, it could be something physical. I mean, for me, a tall guy, first time I went to Tokyo, I was finding myself, especially when it rained and everybody's carrying umbrellas, I'm getting poked in the eyes all the time. Because, you know, it's a different place. So you step outside of what you're used to, and you see that everything's different. One of my favorite ones is honking. You go to New York City, when they say a split second is the time between the light turns green and the guy behind you honks. Like they're honking all the time. I've been to India a lot, and in India the trucks actually say on the back, please honk. Why? Because often they don't have good enough visibility to look over their shoulder and clear a right before they slide to the next lane, so they just start sliding. And if somebody honks, then there's somebody there. If nobody honks, nobody's there. So just start going over, nobody there, nobody honk. So they actually say, please honk. They want you to honk. So what do you think that means as you walk along the street? That's all you're hearing all the time is honking. What about here? Is it that way?
Aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is my second assignment in Hawaii, and I think that I can count on one hand the number of times I've honked my horn in traffic in situations where I needed to. But what does it say about the people? Let's dig this one up a little bit. What does it say about New Yorkers? That they honk all the time.
Less patient,
Less patient? Okay, it's possible.
They value time.
Great. Value time. That's against, okay, now what he just said was very sensitive.
That's why he's our politician.
And what?
That's why he's our politician.
Oh, very good. And what Ms. Robinson said wasn't entirely sensitive. You just said they're less patient. Boom. Okay? But you know, the value of time. What do we know about New York City? Who lives in Manhattan just because their family lived there? I don't think a lot of people do. I think people that are living in Manhattan are living there to make money. What about people who live in Honolulu? How many people come here for business? And not as much. You know, they come here, maybe if they're outsiders, they come here to because they like the island lifestyle, or if they're locals, it's because they've always lived here. You know? And also it's an island. I should have done the math on this. I mean, within an hour you can get off of Manhattan Island pretty fast. Pretty easily at a number of different options. How easily can you get off of Oahu? You know? And so, you know, I perceive that's the attitude that, hey, listen, I better not tick this guy off because we still live on the same island. You know, so I'm not gonna honk at him, you know, and it's like, and I'm obviously not a Hawaiian myself, but you know, he'll cut you off and they give you a shotgun. You know, hey, sorry for cutting you off, man. You know, I mean, we want to keep that peace. Whereas in New York, you don't get that. You get something else. So it's indicative of the norms. Okay, great. So culture. What about war? What about as military guys? I mean, we are in the United States Army. We are training to do our specialty, whether we're going to be an engineer or a pilot or an artilleryman or a nurse or a vet. Why do we need to worry about this thing? Well, they say that all, I'm going to cue up the next video.
Yeah, right.
Victoria Love Club. They say all those, the comparison of love and war, so if it applies in love, it applies in war. So this video is really great on showing you the importance of cultural awareness. And we're going to talk about particular, what's the bottom line failure of the dude in this video. Go ahead.
The next week I brought Rich to Mom's birthday dinner, sort of a surprise present. I figured she was going to have to accept Rich, like it or not. Rich, this is my father.
How you doing?
Happy birthday.
How you doing? I'm good, I'm good.
And Ma, this is Rich.
Great to meet you. Boy, something smells wonderful. I guess we came to the right place, huh? Here you are.
You know, Waverly has been telling me that you are the best cook.
I think maybe we got him.
So many spots on his face.
Of course, the night was still young. Thank God I already prepped him on the Emily Post of Chinese manners. Actually, there were a few things I forgot to mention.
Let me make a toast.
He shouldn't have had that second glass when everyone else had had only half an inch just for taste.
Shrimp. My favorite.
He should have taken only a small spoonful of the best dish until everyone had had a helping.
He has good appetite.
He shouldn't have bragged he was a fast learner. But the worst was when Rich criticized my mother's cooking, and he didn't even know what he had done. As is the Chinese cook's custom, my mother always insults her own cooking, but only with the dishes she serves with special pride.
This dish not salty enough. No flavor. It's too bad to eat. But please.
That was our cue to eat some and proclaim it the best she'd ever made.
You know, Linda, all this needs is a little soy sauce. So, how'd your mom react when you told her about the wedding?
It never came up.
How come?
She'd rather get rectal cancer.
How?
Ouch.
You can just tell that. I think it's gonna play the next one.
Oh. You done with that one?
Yeah, just close that.
Okay.
Yeah, so what does Rich do that's not so slick? What's his bottom line? What's the bottom line failure?
He didn't know.
He didn't know.
He did his research.
Didn't do his research. Okay. What else? Let's dig a little deeper.
Well, how many of you
What-
thought that everything was fine? I mean, seriously, because I didn't think there was too much wrong, but but then see how unaware I am of the Chinese culture. I don't know.
He was operating in an like he wasn't sensitive to their environment and their culture, and it
Yeah.
was just kind of.
Yeah, I think more research could have helped him, but there's oftentimes where you'll find yourself suddenly in a situation where there's no time for research. And it's not even cross-culture like a different ethnicity altogether, but just even a new group you get to. So, was he very observant? Just watching what other people were doing, when in Rome, you know, he was feeling that. Okay, so what, you know, coming over to war, you know, we talk about the phases of war, of shape, deter, seize the initiative, dominate, stabilize, and enable civil authority, and then the levels of war, right? Tactical, operational, strategic. I'm sure you guys are like, you know, rewinding your classes sometime, you know.
I don't
ahead
think
of
we've
some-
ever talked about that, to be honest with you.
Oh, you have?
MS3 years, sir.
Huh?
MS3 years.
A little bit?
MS3?
Okay. It's good to
Well-
know that's in the curriculum.
And you look at the phases of war, I'll just say those again. Shape, deter, seize initiative, dominate, stabilize, and enable civil authority. Going from a situation where there is no conflict to high conflict and back down, post-conflict. And then back to the beginning again and hopefully staying in that, what we call phase 0 shape. And the levels, tactical, operational, strategic. You make a matrix of those. There's 18 places where those intersect, okay? 6 phases of war, 3 levels. And I argue that no matter where you are, that cultural sensitivity is gonna be important. It doesn't matter if you're in high operational stuff where you need to go chase the enemy through a valley, or if you are in a post-conflict or even a humanitarian assistance situation, you have to be aware of what's going on culturally around you. So let me take a couple examples. First one is an operational level of war and seizing the initiative. We've talked a lot, I'm sure you guys talked a lot about the Iraq campaign and some of the mistakes that were made along the way. As Baghdad fell, we had the opportunity to seize the initiative and enable a situation where we didn't have an insurgency growing. Obviously, we weren't too successful in that. But we were now a fish in a different cultural pond. And we'd gotten out of our regular life back in the States, and now we were suddenly in Iraq and having to operate in the Iraqi culture. So you're in that situation. What do you need to know about yourself? What do you need to know about your allies and partners? And what do you need to know about your adversary? Well, one of the things is authority. You got to understand authority. Again, this is just an example. But if you want to defeat the bad guy or build relationships with your partners, you got to understand how they view authority. So we cut off the head of the Ba'athist leadership in Iraq and hoped that we could build democracy and put a new government in place and everything would work out fine. But in the Iraqi situation, when the head was cut off, they devolved back to a tribal environment. The tribal leadership became the priority. If that happened in our culture, that likely wouldn't happen much. We'd probably go back to the family because we don't follow much tribal structures here in the United States. But that's what they did there. And those tribal structures became the backbone for the insurgency. So the idea that if we just remove the head and slap it on with a new one, that's going to be fine, that demonstrated a lot of ignorance. Not a lot of paying attention to what was going on in the society right there. Another one is really fascinating to me is communication. We believe that if we were going to go and defeat their communication networks, what do we need to do? Or to understand what they were doing, the insurgents, we just need a good technology, right? I mean, if you want good, you just got to hack their Facebook page. You just got to listen in on their cell phone calls, okay? What's the real way to know what's going on? Is it just by Facebook and then cell phone calls?
Human interaction.
Human interaction, absolutely, absolutely. Were we at the coffee bars? Were we hanging out and chit-chatting at the mosques with guys, trying to win hearts and minds? Okay, knowing what you guys know of that campaign, why weren't we? Why?
We didn't adapt, sir, as a culture ourselves.
Yeah, we were concerned about, we had threats everywhere. So I'm not trying to sit here and nitpick those that stayed in the wire, but it was a dangerous world out there. And to go outside, you were putting your life on the line. And so for force protection's sake, we weren't going out. But what does that do to our relationships with our partners? So, if you guys want to jump with any anecdotal
Okay, no,
totally disagree with me, you're welcome to.
No,
Anybody
I
else
don't
would
agree with anything you said. I'm just trying to figure out still what the guy did wrong in the video, but.
Yeah. Yeah, so you just can't learn everything by listening with your tech guys and your intel guys. You have to get on the street and understand the people from the ground up. Religion, politics. Is there a difference in the way that the Middle East views the relationship between religion and politics and the way we do? What do we typically adhere to? Separation. And how about particularly Arab cultures, Muslim cultures? Yeah.
Very
Islam covers all aspects of life.
Yeah, that's really probably the better answer. That Islam isn't everything. That it's not like Sunday's church day, and then Wednesday work, and Saturday, I watch my sports, whatever. It's everything. And so if you try to establish, I remember thinking when I saw that we were going to call it the Islamic government of Afghanistan or Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. I thought, oh gosh, we screwed it up. We're just putting the Taliban right back in power, because we're putting the Islamic back in it, and that's obviously bad. But without that in there, especially with that culture, that government would have been illegitimate. Yeah. What else do you guys think that when you're in that type of situations, cultural things you need to be paying attention to? We're not talking full-scale war here. We're talking you seize the initiative and you're trying to prevent it from getting worse. Let's even take something from the Mauna Kea situation. What could those guys have done differently? They're putting that telescope there.
Ask what locals think about it.
Yeah. Maybe try to understand culturally what's going on. Yeah.
Local contractors.
Do as much local as you can.
But I think the problem with that runs a lot deeper with regards to what the gentleman said about, you know, the territory, the annexation and the whole 9 yards, right? It runs a lot deeper than,
Sir, if I could add to that, when I was at the George C. Marshall conference, sir, we had a Nigerian major who was in our classroom, and he drew a simple line of how Americans view culture and how Nigerians view culture, and it made total sense. I mean, he drew the first line. He was like, the nation. He was like, you guys as Americans see the nation as first, family, extended family, then your army. He was like, this is just kind of an example. And he's like, for us here in Nigeria, we see in Nigeria we look at it as the clan comes first. We view it as a clan, and then our family, and then our extended family, and then our army, and then our nation. And he said, so the way that the Americans view our society, he said, is no different. When you can understand that the clan comes first, and you understand the needs of the clan, then we can work together as two nations. That was something that.
and that's kind of what Jennifer Potts is talking about. We have so many challenges because we never get outside our own society and our own way of thinking about things. We got to Iraq and we think we can put another, you know, we can, without even understanding really what the second and third level effects of what we just did. You know what I mean? You have that one video that I think is powerful too, right? Do you have that?
Yeah.
Do you have that one?
The tank one?
Yeah. Do you want to go?
Yeah.
With that? Do you want to wait on that for a few minutes?
Let me,
Because it's just an example. I mean,
it's a good one. It's a good one to show. Well, let's go and show it. That's fine because there's a lot of points to pull out of it, and this really gets out of after leadership. So with this one, this is a yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna ask you to pause it a couple times. If you don't mind.
okay. Do you have it set up where you want me to start it
Yeah,
at?
go ahead. No. Show me to play.
Okay.
There was still some looting going on when we arrived.
I'm going to stop it.
And when we came across soldiers, they didn't seem sure of their role.
Hey, look for try to find a leader in this. This non-commissioned officer and officer. Go ahead.
That child don't need to be here. Know what school is? Okay, that's what he need to be doing, not following you.
Okay,
We filmed.
Okay, so what did he just say?
Child needs to be in school.
Child needs to be in school. What did we just do?
We impose.
Tell them their government.
schools.
And is he speaking through an interpreter?
No.
Like, I think he's being understood.
And he's like pointing.
Yeah, and I don't know enough about Arab culture to understand, but that may be offensive. You know, I know that in most places, pointing with your finger is a lot more offensive than pointing with the old knife edge. So, yeah, and it's just, and it's a lot of it is just taking the water the water that my fish pond is in and imposing it on somebody else and say, listen, if I see a kid on the street in Honolulu, he should be in school. So here I am in Baghdad, he should be in school. So, there you go.
These GIs, after they caught a group of Iraqis stealing wood.
We try to stop them from looting, they don't understand, so we take their car and we crush it. United States Army, tankers, who?
Okay, I did write that down. They were what were they stealing? Wood. Okay, why? Just let's throw. I don't know why. Why did they have stealing wood?
Firewood.
Firewood. What else?
Shelter.
Yeah. I mean, are they stealing antiquities? Valuables? I mean, this is probably for their own livelihood. Then he says, we stop them from looting. They don't understand, so we'll take their car and crush it.
I forgot the best part.
Yes, U.S. Army tankers. Who's going Armor Branch?
Anderson, one thing's for sure, this will probably be the only time you see tankers off of their tank.
Definitely for this, Mo.
low.
Later, the car's owner told us, "I'm a taxi driver. The car was my livelihood."
So anybody see any leaders in that? I believe that guy was a staff sergeant that was talking. It's hard to make out his right. Yeah. Any
What do you guys think about that?
Did they get fired?
What do you
I don't-
think? Probably
I
not,
don't
right?
remember that.
You see that mentality? You need to look in the mirror. That's our mentality, people. Maybe not to that extreme, right? Because over the last 10 years, we've been a little culturally, right, sensitized, right? But do you not see our own culture in that whole, our military, Army, U.S. culture?
Try to, now, when you're watching these videos, guys, try to put yourselves in their perspective, all right? It's easy to judge from where we sit now, because we're all clean, we're all happy, we're all fed, and we haven't been fighting for 12 months. Complacency hasn't set in, we haven't lost our brothers and our sisters over there, okay? So try to understand the mindset, you know, you understand that there's a reason that this training's going on, and it's a challenge.
And you can also see that the failure of one tank squad that gets caught on video. And I wouldn't say caught on video, and that was like, it was like documentary quality. They knew it was being done. And those guys didn't think to call it in. You know, hey, is it okay? We found this. You know, I would imagine the leader would never allow that. So yeah, that's pretty, that gets me every time I watch it, and it ticks me off. And of course, now it's on YouTube, it's not hard to find. So everybody else, what do you think this did for that guy? And what do you think it did for his family, and also for the opinion of the American forces trying to liberate a country, right? You know, because this guy went and got some firewood. So.
Or just anybody in the future that wants to work with the United States and they can get on and Google, you know. It's definitely, and guys, you're soldiers. If you're not a leader for them, you know, I mean, your soldiers will do this kind of stuff. Yeah.
I wouldn't pull it up now, sir, but I mean, just if you go, I've seen this video before, if you go in the comment section, you know, you don't only have Iraqis that are pissed about it, you have people from, you know, Eastern Europe who are watching these videos, seeing what Americans are doing, and saying, well, I don't want them in my country, you know, so, I mean, it creates that really bad representation of us.
Yes, sir. I think a lot of it has to do too with the adaptation of what we were expected to do as soldiers. We went in there, run and gun, we went all the way up to the top, we made it to Baghdad, clear Baghdad out, and then we were forced as a military to become a police force now. And that's not something we were trained to do.
Yeah.
We didn't understand.
They probably received orders, stop looting at all costs.
Absolutely.
And it's probably something vague.
And I think where we've gone as far as an army, like Colonel Carson was saying, you know, where we are going with that in education, we become a lot more sensitive to these factors. And we've changed. We've become a more dynamic army. We were, at that point in time, we were a direct contact force. Something more, you know, adapted to like a Soviet type of function, or Desert Storm, Desert Shield army. So at that time.
See, Q, I think you hit on a point that I think is very important, you kind of touched on, which is, you say, hey, listen, we weren't trained for this scenario. We weren't trained for this, okay? As leaders, that doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter. That is a mentality that, yes, the Army, I think, suffers from. And weak leaders will hide behind that excuse for failure.
Guys, you're never trained for what you're about to go into. That's why I agree with the Army's way of trying to change the way, from a commissioning source, their focus on you, and that's your ability to be adaptive and problem solve and critically think, and have character, and demonstrate initiative. You know,
Yeah,
it's
that's
huge.
Go back to the Joy Luck Club video too. I mean, he was not being adaptive. He was acting the way he normally acted, just in the wrong context, and he wasn't considering.
So does that make it a little more clear? Because I guarantee, I've heard a lot of people in this room throw their hands up in frustration and just say, you know, well, I can't do this because I haven't been trained to do this.
Yeah.
At some point in the 4 years or 2 years or however long you've been here, look inwardly, and how many of you have said that? And realize that that is a mentality that this program is trying to eradicate.
But you guys remember back from last year's LTX, right? After the KLE stuff, and you guys got thrown into a KLE environment, you're like, we're not trained for this. That's not the point. But you guys survived, right? You appreciate it now, right? You're about to send the next MS3s through that same appreciational value, right? We actually gave them a little bit more training time, didn't we? We gave them a whole day, right? So, go ahead.
I think I was the whole time I was just thinking what the PMS just said, is that you guys survived, right? And throughout everything that we've been hearing today, what I seem to see a connection with is that, you know, whether you're trained or not, if you see culture as survival, then you can adapt to any situation, because water is survival for the fish. When fish is taken out of the water, we can't just so.
The only thing I might disagree with you a little bit on is that our goal is not just to survive. Because when it comes to dealing with the foreign partners we have, and of course our adversaries, we don't want to just survive. We want to shape the situation the way we want it to happen. So I mean, I only say this because I in my current job, I've advised a lot of general officers before they go in to meet with a foreign general. And the guys, you can see some of the guys that are just like, why are we doing this stupid thing? You know, I just want to kick down doors. I just want to, go to the range, I won't say what.
Cut that part out. No, will you talk a little bit about where you went to school, where you went to
Sure,
college, kind of who you are, and that kind of stuff. So because I don't know if you guys know what a foreign area officer is.
You probably don't.
It's
I didn't know much about it. So I am a foreign area officer. That is my career field. I came out of the academy and went to flight school and flew Chinooks for 6-7 years. Flew up at Wheeler, flew out in Germany, Afghanistan. Did all that great stuff, commanded in Afghanistan, and had a wonderful time. But then after I got done commanding, I went to the Defense Language Institute, learned the Urdu language, spent a year learning language, then rolled over to right next door to the Naval Postgraduate School, where I got a degree in South Asia Security Studies. So master's degree, this is all Army funded. Then went from there to Pakistan, where I got this outstanding outfit. I think it cost $15. Went to Pakistan, I went to the staff college there. And then from there, came here to Hawaii, so all that training, almost 4 years, to train me to be a guy that can understand my region. I'm assigned the region of South Asia, so Pakistan, India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives, so that I can understand it as thoroughly as I can, be the local expert on it, and advise general officers or advise our command on how to best engage there. Ideally in that phase 0, that shape, but also all the way through all the phases of operations. But yeah.
So do you work with APCSS at all?
I tangentially. There's some FAOs that are down there as well. There's a couple Army FAOs that are down there as well. But a lot of the same guys that we work with foreigners we work with do wind up at APCSS as well. So, but not intimately. But anyhow, so that's what we do. We fill roles in the combatant command. So there's a handful of guys at PACOM, at the Army Service Component Commands like USERPAC. And also what's most exciting for me, and my next assignment is in the embassies. I'm headed in a couple weeks to go to the attaché school, where I'm, after 4 months in DC, I'm going to go to Nepal. And I'm going to serve as the senior military guy in Nepal, which is, it's ridiculously awesome. It sounds bigger than it is. I'm going to be senior of like 12 people. But still, when that ambassador needs somebody to talk defense stuff, he looks to me. When that Army needs to talk to the U.S. Department of Defense, they talk to me. And that's intimidating. Talk about stuff you're not trained for. I mean, I'm going to go to school for it. So that's intimidating. So the Army places such a high value on this cultural understanding and understanding other people groups, understanding how to relate to them, so we can not just survive, but actually succeed and really shape it the way we want to shape it. So and the Army does this better than any branch, and everybody will actually, it's one of the few places where everybody admits and agrees that this is the case. But we take guys completely out and say, you're no longer an aviation branch officer or an armor officer or infantry officer, you're now a FAO. And that's all you can do for the rest of your career. And so I have a chance to really dig deep in my one region and become as great as I can be. It's a great thing. You don't typically look at it until you're in county command, but I have my contact information to throw out to, or definitely through the PMS, if you guys have any questions on that. So, any other questions about FAO? Yes?
Is it offered to all branches?
It is. It tends to go more for combat arms, because when we are talking with other foreign leaders, it translates a lot more easily if you say, hey, oh, I'm an artilleryman. Oh, I'm an artilleryman too. Finance corps doesn't translate as readily. And I have yet to hear of anybody from a medical service or nurse or veterinary, any of those medical services corps transferring over to FAO. So, but otherwise, I know finance guys, I know singlers, I know adjutant general guys that do get it, but by and large, it's common arms.
Sir, do you have an option to choose a region?
You do, in that, like with everything in the Army, you put your preferences down, and if you want to go to Fort Polk, you can go to Fort Polk. You know, so I was one of those weirdos that actually wanted South Asia. It's kind of considered a backwards part. There's no Paris, there's no Bangkok or Canberra, Australia. That is a wonderful assignment. Everything's kind of a third world, but I put that down, and I found out later that was a defining reason of why I actually got into the whole career field to begin with, because I actually wanted to do the region.
And some of your experiences as a FAO in Pakistan at the staff school that you went
Yeah.
to,
Well,
what was that kind of like for you? Are you going to get into that?
I'm going to get into that, in particular, the big event.
Okay.
But yeah, so in Pakistan, I was for a whole year in the Pakistan Army. I was one of 2 Americans at their staff college. Gosh, I was my street was in Quetta, which is not even the capital. They have a world map, Dave. But it is actually closer to Kandahar. It's in the middle of the desert. If you've ever heard of the Quetta Shura, it's like the Taliban's, Congress or whatever. It's their headquarters. It's supposedly in that town. So yeah, surrounded by the Pakistan Army, armed guards right on my street that I didn't always trust, and so.
Looking back, sir, Bin Laden's house? Did you
I
see
passed
it?
within a quarter mile of it.
No shit.
Yeah.
Excuse my language.
While he was there. So I'll tell more on that story.
That's right, thanks to staff college.
Yeah. No, it's next to the academy.
Thanks to the academy.
The staff college is further south, but they did take me up to visit the academy. And after they got him, I looked at them, I'm like, we drove that road, and oh wow. So, okay, let me go back to another situation. So we talked about the more operational level in seizing initiative. Now let's talk tactical and dominating, where many of you could find yourselves, hopefully not, because like I say, we all pray for peace, but if we find ourselves in the need to dominate and go in and defeat the enemy soundly, that charge can be led by lieutenants. We are the American Army. We're the baddest asses out there. And what did the great philosopher Toby Keith said? We'll put a boot in your ass, the American way. Culture doesn't matter when you piss us off, right? Let's blow them all back to the Stone Age. Did you guys hear any of this after 9/11?
Yes.
Remember that awesome videos of AC-130s chasing the running away Taliban through the poppy field and just lighting them up and, yeah, America. And annihilating their huts in the middle of the night. Bottom line is don't F with America, right? You can I can hear the American Team America theme song here. So with all that in mind, consider this article I'll read to you about a division that I know is near and dear to your PMS's heart. But this was back in 2002, and I'm sure that you were not involved. I yelled at them to stop. So this is August 2002, so we're not even a year into the war. One afternoon in August, a U.S. Special Forces A team knocked at the door of a half-ruined mud compound in the Shiakot Valley. The servicemen were taking part in Operation Mountain Sweep, a week-long hunt for Al-Qaeda and Taliban fugitives in eastern Afghanistan. The man of the house, an elderly farmer, let the Americans in as soon as his female relatives had gone back to a back room, out of the gaze of strange men. Asked if there were any weapons in the house, the farmer proudly showed them his only firearm, a hunting rifle nearly a century old. When the team had finished searching, carefully letting the woman stay out of the sight, the farmer served tea. The Americans thanked him and walked toward the next house. So as they've left that house, do you think we've left a bad impression with that farmer? No. They didn't get far before the team's captain looked back. 6 paratroopers from an unnamed airborne division, also part of Mountain Sweep, were lined up outside the farmer's house, preparing to force their way in. I yelled at them to stop, says the captain, but they went ahead and kicked in the door. The farmer panicked and tried to run. Of course, if you're running, you're guilty, right? what are they saying in Apocalypse Now? If they run, they're Viet Cong. If they're not running, they're well-disciplined Viet Cong, right? Is that a reference too old?
No, that's, is that Full Metal Jacket? That's
Is it Full Metal Jacket?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Stanley Kubrick forgives you.
That's Marine too. Right? The former cadet tried to run. One of the paratroopers slammed him to the ground. The captain raced back to the house. Inside, he says, other helmeted soldiers from this division were attempting to frisk the women. By the time the captain could order the soldiers to leave, the family was in a state of shock. The women were screaming bloody murder, recalled the captain. The guy was in tears. He had been completely dishonored. Now, what do you think that's going to do for his opinion of the United States Armed Forces? Of course, a lot of disagreement about what really happened, and that's not the point. But the point is what it affects later on. It says, Mountain Sweep, although it was successful by many accounts and they were able to find Taliban and drive them out, it ended the stream of friendly intelligence on weapon caches, mines, and terrorist activities. For the first time, the Green Berets, as they went through, had rocks thrown at them. They had built all this rapport, but Mountain Sweep probably set back the counterinsurgency and intelligence operations by at least 6 months. So, yes, we are the strongest, baddest army in the world, but does that mean that we just get to go in and kick doors down wherever we want to go?
I just have one comment on that.
Yeah.
Because I just want you to understand it goes both ways. So I have had plenty of opportunities to build relationships with people that I've worked, with village elders and whatnot for a year or 6 months, right? And I'm right to the point where I'm about